Hi everyone, welcome to my channel, How Law Brings Business. This is Charlene. Today I'm going to talk about politics again and how politics impacts business. I think in my previous video I mentioned the public health order that most of the people need to stay at home in Sydney during the lockdown, and that it's quite obvious how the stay-at-home order impact like restaurants and hospitality industry. So today I'm going to talk about another type of politics, another type of impact to the business, even to our everyday life, but it works in the background. So these kind of politics, it's very hard to tell whether it's purely a domestic issue or it's more international issues, because when you look at the politics by itself, sometimes it's not that straightforward. For example, some countries may increase its environmental standards, which means that like some products that are imported from other countries are no longer meet the new standards, which means that the country who previously supplied the product can no longer supply the same product. And because the policy usually are put in force quite quickly, then the supplier country may not have enough time to adjust its product to meet its standards. And this is very common in the context of international trade and business. And if your business are doing export or import related goods, then it will be very easily impacted by different standards of the country. And yeah, it's reasonable in a sense that, for example, the policy was made with a good intention, but then it will also impact the international trade and business quite significantly. However, there's another policy or politic. There's another policy which are more political, I would say. For example, the US banned the sales of chips to China. And it's not just the chips for phones and computers, but I think the scale is larger. Like it includes all the technology related products to China. Let me take my personal experience and share with you how this will impact businesses. So I think you can already tell, okay, now the chips cannot be sold in China. So they have to sell it to someone else, or the companies who supply those chips has to reduce its production. And the other thing is, even from a startup funding panel, when I was trying to make an investment, I have to answer some censorship question in relation to, okay, if you are going to raise funds for a startup, will this involve with technology products that will eventually be sold to China? So this is the question that I got before I can register as a member and before I can raise funds if I want to. And there's a second question also related to China, and it's very similar to the first question. So we can see that just based on the censorship question, we can see that the US government is making a very strong political requirement on businesses that you can or you can't do something. Like, for example, if you have to sell your product to China, maybe it would go through a lot more extra proceedings to be approved. And just do not ignore those government requirements and government proceedings for the goods and services, especially export or import goods and services. It could be really complicated. It could be very burdensome to a small business or even a big company. They will still have to follow all these process, and it's very time consuming. Maybe for a bigger company, they have enough staff and they have enough funding or like starting fund to go through the process. But if it's a very small company that's short of hands and it doesn't have that much product, maybe it will choose not to. Like, especially for companies like startups, they might give up the Chinese market at the start. However, as I say, it's not the end of the world with all these politic requirements, but it does affect the business quite significantly, and it might just cut people's thoughts at the very beginning stage. Like, okay, I want to avoid all this trouble. I want to avoid all these administrative proceedings. So I think it will be easier for me not to do certain type of business. Yeah. So these are my thoughts. And sometimes things change all of a sudden as well, because it's politics.